So let's get started with constructing our first academic book review. And the first thing to always keep in mind whenever you write anything is to remember the audience. Remember the people you're speaking to. And a trick I like to use for myself whenever I'm writing anything is to imagine as I'm writing, I'm reading it aloud and the people I'm speaking to or writing to are sitting right here across the desk from me. They're right there. Maybe it's just a couple people at a time, maybe it's a whole auditorium, depending on the audience, but they are there and they are listening, and I can see their reactions, I can see their faces, I can see how they are taking this. And so keeping that in mind, keeping the audience in mind is the absolute critical first step for every piece of writing you ever do. And that includes academic book reviews. And there are a few audiences that are going to read and use your academic book review in a few different ways. Number one, your academic book review will be published in a journal. It will be there, and it will be in a journal in your field. It might be a major journal, it might be a minor journal, it might be somewhere in between, but that journal has readers. And those readers are going to flip through the academic book reviews to see what kind of books are out there and new and interesting and worthy of inclusion in their own work. They are going to be reading this. So these are your friends, these are your enemies, these are your colleagues. This is the community in your field, whoever reads that journal. Secondly, the author of the book is going to be reading this. The author of the book is hoping for a book review of their book. They're also hoping it's a positive review. But if you have to write a highly critical review, if there are many shortcomings to the book, if there are a lot of flaws, imagine the author or authors sitting there across the desk from you. So would you just, with them staring at you, rip into it and dismiss it and be rude? No. You would temper it. Say, oh, hey, there are a lot of positives, but there were some. This is me, by the way, pretending to talk to the authors of the book. There are some shortcomings that unfortunately I had to point out, but I believe that there is still some merit in the book for this kind of audience and that they will get this benefit from reading it. They won't agree with you. They're not going to like your critique. But if you write it as if they were sitting across from you, they will be much more likely to accept it as a part of the polite discourse in the field. But it's not just the readers of the journal, it's not just the author of the book, it is the editor of the journal themselves. Now, this, depending on the journal, depending on the size and prestige of the journal, they might just be the editor of the journal who is going to be soliciting this review, accepting the review, reading through the review, deciding to publish the review. It might be an associate editor. It might be an editor especially dedicated to reviews in the book. It depends on the journal, and we'll explore some options later of who that person might be. But they're going to read it. Now, they're not going to read it in the sense of peer review. There's not any peer review. And when it comes to academic book reviews, either the editor will reach out to you, or you will reach out to the editor to initiate the process of a book review. And we'll show you how to do that later. That will be the initial conversation. Then you go off into the wilderness, read the book, take your notes, write your review. You will submit it to the editor. The editor will decide if it's appropriate for inclusion. There might be a little bit of back and forth about cleaning things up. By and large, though, the editor will say, no, this review is just doesn't follow our guidelines, is rude, you used a bunch of swear words weirdly, like there'll be some reason to say, I'm sorry, we are going to decline using this review. Or they accept it. The editor will be the one deciding this, not some blind third party, not someone else, not a peer. It will be the editor. You might already have a relationship with this editor. You might know them, but they will be the ones doing this. And if they decide it's not appropriate or useful or interesting for their readers, they will simply not run it. So the editor is going to be sitting across from you, evaluating your evaluation, critiquing your critique, deciding if it is good enough for inclusion in the journal. And if it is, it's just going to go out there into the wild. There's not a lot of back and forth on this. The audience for a potential book review isn't just the members of your own field, though. There is a wider academic community that might read this book. If someone is interested in initiating some cross-disciplinary work, or their departments are very closely aligned on campus, or they're a junior researcher, or maybe even an undergraduate who's considering a career in this field, they're going to crack open the journal. They're going to want to read some books. They're going to want to read some scholarship to get a better sense of this field, but they don't know where to start. They're going to start with the book reviews, because the book review says, ooh, very useful, but very complex. This is only for people already firmly ensconced in the field. If you're outside of it or a junior, like, don't bother. That's a useful review. That's a useful thing to know that should not be ignored. People will use your recommendation to decide whether to buy and read a scholarly book or not, an academic book. This is useful. It is a useful tool. It is a part of the discussion. And so keep in mind people that are outside of, for any book, you can probably think of 1 or 2 dozen people that are going to read the book no matter what, because it's just a part of the field. Think of the other people. Think of the people outside your field that might find this useful. Future hiring committees will use your body of work when it comes to academic book reviews as a part of grant decisions, as a part of tenure decisions or hiring decisions. So imagine them, the people that will someday give you money, give you a job, give you a grant, are sitting across from you, and they may disagree with your conclusions, but if you present your case well, they will recognize that for what it is. Like, wow, this book review was very nicely constructed. This person is known as giving very fair, balanced, but also critical assessments of academic work. That's a good research. That's someone we want in our department. That's someone we want to give a grant to, because this is an evidence, it's an artifact of solid academic work. So keep that in mind, that everything you write becomes a part of your own academic record and reflects on you. So if you write a bad review, like a poorly constructed review or a useless review, that is part of your academic work that you cannot ignore for the rest of your life. It will be there. And if you don't write any book reviews at all, that itself is a red flag. But this is also useful for yourself. You can use this academic book reviews as a tool to chart your own understanding of the field and your own thoughts and feelings and reflections on the field. If you read a book and it really strikes a positive chord and you love it and you write your book review, and then the field moves on a few years later, and then you look back at your own review. Did you do a good job? Was it fair? Did you miss something major? Did you overemphasize something that was minor? How good of a job did you do in that review that you wrote a couple years ago? That's an important part of critical self-evaluation. That's a very important part of your academic career, is always improving, always looking for better ways to do analysis, to understand, to do critiques. And so you are your own audience in this. Your future self is going to read this. You don't want them to cringe with embarrassment. Okay? You want your future self to say, "Good job, past self. That was a really nice review and you were on top of it. Keep up the good work."